Hello and welcome to another episode of We're the North Bank podcast, where we'll be discussing all things Arsenal. Today I'm joined by Stefan, and I'm hoping, Stefan, this will be a cathartic experience for us both, perhaps.
Well, put it this way, it's a good job that we're doing this roughly about 48 hours after the actual match.
After the event.
So a lot of catharsis has taken place.
In other words, doing as many other things as you possibly can to avoid thinking or dwelling on what happened on Friday evening.
Absolutely.
Well, that's been my kind of mantra or attitude this weekend. So I just wanted to start by asking you if you can cast your mind back, to the final whistle or the moments following the final whistle, maybe the walk back to the coach, because you were at the game, I wasn't. I was watching through fingers on the sofa, and maybe the bus journey back up to Norfolk. What was your overriding kind of sense or gut response
if I'm going to be
to what
completely honest, I was slightly broken, because as spirited as the fight back was, and how, teasing that carrot dangling before us was that we might push on for an actual winner, a draw just felt so disappointing, to be honest. So I have this sort of thing that I've noticed over the years where there comes a point in every season where I just get this gut feeling. Interesting you ask about gut feeling. I get this gut feeling at a certain point in the season where I go, well, that's the season done then, isn't it? And I couldn't help but feel a little bit of that.
Is that a crushing familiarity, or it has to have been a different feeling this time?
It's not the familiarity. It is just literally no. It feels like the thing that we've been trying to achieve is now no longer necessarily achievable. Yeah. The first time I ever noticed it was a few years ago when we had Atletico Madrid in the Europa League semi-final.
Red card.
Well, it was more conceding the
was it Griezmann goal?
Yeah, the Griezmann goal at home, because we'd done so well up to that point against, easily at the time one of the toughest opponents around. And I remember being blown away. That again, sometimes your opinion of a player is coloured by what you see in person. So, Jan Oblak in goal for Atletico Madrid will probably always be the best keeper that I've ever seen live in some respects, because he was just unbelievable that night. And we'd done so well. And then to concede the equaliser, this was when away goals did count, just felt like such a gut punch, knowing that we would have to go to their stadium. I don't even know if they were in the new stadium by then. And try and realistically score two against the best defense in the world, if not just Europe. I just didn't feel anything. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was just numbness, because I just knew that opportunity had gone. I don't think I said anything the entire way home, and a carload of us had gone down from Norfolk, and I'm pretty sure I just didn't say a word. That's my memory of it. I'm sure that's exaggerated for effect, and I couldn't help but feel a little bit of it.
Okay. Now, I do want to ask you and how you're feeling now, but I suspect that might detract from your kind of three takeaways or your three positives. So I won't focus on that for the moment. So let's rewind a little bit further and go to the team news, because that was quite interesting. Two bits of information were kind of struck. First, that Zinchenko was available, because the word prior to that was certainly that he was more doubtful than not. And I wonder, as I was writing that down, just as my notes now, I had the thought that because I thought he had a really poor game by his standards, and I wonder was he really fully fit? And because he definitely it was a surprise to see him in the starting 11. Let's put it that way. Saliba, we knew wasn't going to start. So Zinchenko coming back in ostensibly was good. That's the good bit of team news. But the bad bit of team news was Xhaka out. Now, I messaged you prior to the game when that news broke about 90 minutes prior to kickoff. And I just said, I assumed he'd play Vieira instead of Xhaka. And you replied that you'd go with Trossard.
Every day.
And that just made perfect sense. And he should have gone with Trossard. And that's not, everyone's a brilliant manager with hindsight.
Of course.
We said it prior. You said it prior to the game, and I was like, yes, of course. That's obvious. Home to Southampton, bottom team. We need to make a statement, put in a statement performance to get our confidence back. And he plays Vieira, who has been... Look, Vieira was not purchased for this season. He was purchased, I think, to prevent him having a fantastic season with, is it Sporting, and becoming like ridiculously priced after that and out of our reach. And actually, the way the game started had nothing to do with Vieira, so it's not his. That wasn't on him at all. But I think this is the third podcast in a row where I certainly have questioned some of Arteta's decision making. And just to, we'll bounce forward to half time. He should have hooked Vieira at half time for Trossard, but he waited till the 57th minute to do that. And I don't understand that. But anyway, so what did you think about the team news?
Well, yeah, gutted that Xhaka wouldn't be there, but the Trossard change would have made so much more sense. Like you say, Southampton at home, they're fighting relegation. That's fine. Someone talked about, the fact that Jorginho could have played a bit further up. We know he's a deep line midfielder, and however, I can understand why he wouldn't have been picked to start, because it would have just looked like a quite negative sort of approach.
Yes, he's more sideways than incisive.
Yeah. So that's fine. So therefore, Trossard's the player in form. And it's funny you said about Zinchenko as well, because certainly the lightning rod for criticism among the crowd was, I'm sure we'll get to Ramsdale's mistake, but beyond that, it really was just Vieira. And like you say, it's not necessarily his fault. He was bought into a team as a young squad player, and that team were looking to take just one step up and challenge for top four. No one in there, yes, in our wildest dreams, we thought we might challenge for the title, but not really.
No,
exactly.
We didn't.
So then that's why I also do question it. And, you can put whatever team. Frankly, it's Southampton who are bottom of the table. It shouldn't particularly matter, but just to, because we're here to talk about something, you play the player that's been in form, that will hit the ground running more. Vieira isn't that.
Well, what does he offer you? What does he offer you?
Well, we can get into the ins and outs. He barely played half a season when we bought him, and then he's had a very bitty season with us this year. I don't know what's to really be expected of him. He does seem, a little bit of an enigma at the minute. I'd love to know what he's doing in training, or if it's a case of, is Arteta being very rigid when it comes to player selection in terms of their position? That actually it's about putting the player in the role rather than the player in form and adapting the tactics around that.
Yeah, he's been burned. He's been burned by putting square pegs in round holes last season. Certainly, Xhaka at left back, for example. So maybe he does decide to choose the more suited player.
To torture a metaphor ever so slightly, didn't we buy Trossard as the kind of Swiss Army peg that can take on different forms? He plays across the entire front line. Yes. I'm sure he could step into the Xhaka
Oh, he
role,
could, and he
no
did,
problem.
and he did when he came on. Anyway, so let's so that was the team news. Southampton won away at Chelsea, drew away Manchester United, have already beaten us this season at home at their grounds. So perhaps, I mean, I was confident. I sat down.
Wasn't it a draw?
Was it a draw? I thought they beat us after they. Oh, was it another draw after the Leeds? Straight after the Leeds game, wasn't it?
We lost to United, didn't we? Drew with Southampton, and then.
Oh, I thought the Southampton game was straight after the Leeds game.
It was before or after. It was one of the two, wasn't it? Yeah. But either way. So they've had some interesting results. But they're bottom of the league.
But I was confident. And
I know
I'm
you were.
And I'm rarely confident.
I called out your confidence.
Yes, but you did. Yeah, you might have called it out, but that's because of some kind of fate and mystical, magical nonsense. Yeah. It wasn't because you actually thought that Southampton would not. It wasn't because you thought that we wouldn't beat Southampton.
No,
you thought we would beat Southampton.
I thought we would. I predicted as much that we would. Weeks ago when we talked about it. But at the same time, that was before we'd thrown 2-goal leads away against Liverpool and West Ham, and we're having to adjust to certain players coming in and out of the side. Yes, well, it's hard, isn't it? Because everyone's going into that game thinking, okay, here we go. Here's where we try and get back on track.
Goal difference, I was thinking.
Well, that's arrogant. I think we're at the point now that the goal difference won't amount to anything if we don't just win games. Just get the job done. That means getting, when you get a 2-goal lead, do whatever you're doing.
Do a Newcastle.
Well, exactly. Get the third, get the fourth, or when you start a game, even if it's at home, switch on. Don't start casually. Don't start thinking
that was. I mean, look, there's no getting away from it. That first goal was hilarious if it was happening to any other team apart from us. And what's interesting, I saw a still. I can't remember where I saw it, but the easy pass for Ramsdale was to Holding, but Holding was pointing to, was it Partey who was supposed to receive that pass? He was pointing to him. So Ramsdale could still have passed to Holding and just ignored the point. But what the hell is your centre half, who's completely free and safe and out of the side, telling the goalkeeper where to pass it in the first minute between two Southampton players with his first touch of the ball? I don't know. And Ramsdale completely screwed up that pass completely. And just to compound that mistake, he absolutely should have saved the shot. He got his hand to it and he's kind of just flapped. His hand flopped almost. His save against Salah at Anfield was so much better, much more tricky. This save, and I don't know whether I think he just obviously had a complete brain fade with the mistake, and he didn't get his head clear in time to save the shot, which was a fantastic shot, by the way. It was a good shot from that distance and angle, but he still should have saved it. What was the atmosphere like when that goal went in?
Well, can we talk about the atmosphere before? Because I want to try and bring in some positivity. The atmosphere was electric. In hindsight, I wonder if everyone was enjoying it a bit too much, expecting the win. But that's because I'm rewriting history in my head. But no, it really was good. Always slightly annoyed by those people now who just throw beer for the sake of throwing beer. But, they were jumping about in the concourse outside block, 5, 6, 7, where we normally are. It really was good. And North London Forever really went. I don't know if the TV cameras picked this up, but Zinchenko was having some kind of moment when everyone was singing North London Forever. He was reacting like he was a rock star on stage who's having the crowd sing back to him. I I almost feel like he's invested almost too much emotionally, and I suppose mainly similar with Ramsdale, perhaps, with the way they've started the game. You know, that cold, dead-eyed assassin, approach to a game that City are sort of famed for is something that we've definitely got to adopt. Mind you, that said, I'm going to contradict myself later, because actually what we needed later on in the game was fire and brimstone. So, it's about the right emotion in the right moment.
I think, anyway. but no, I think we got the right emotions at the wrong time, because the first 20 minutes of the second half, we were like too calm, too passive.
Yeah.
It was like, well, okay, we want to balance here. Absolutely, we needed to calm down and regain our composure at half time. But obviously, that message was delivered by Arteta and his team, but it was taken too far. And I wonder, Xhaka's absence as well. And we know he's doing his badges and so on. I think we really missed his presence on the pitch, not least because Vieira was anonymous, but just what Xhaka adds beyond his actual game, his personality on the pitch and how well he's performed this season. So that was, So we started. I mean, I could not believe. I was watching that game, and I'm like, okay, well, at least we can't go 2-0 up. And
yes, that was very much joked upon by many people.
So I see what we're doing here. It's clever. It's clever. It's all part of the plan. And then Theo Walcott.
You asked what the atmosphere did. I mean, it initially, of course, it was like a bubble bursting. It just evaporated. But as has been the case for most of the season, very quickly, the cheers came back and the support was there. And I must say, even with the setback of the second goal, that support returned really quite quickly. The slight negatives that have been reported later on is that Walcott was booed when he came off, which absolutely wasn't the case where I was.
Well, no, it didn't on the telly. Initially, there were a few boos, but they were soon drowned out.
Yeah,
by
he got rightly applauded going off the pitch. He looked embarrassed to score.
He did, didn't he? I've never seen that. I've never seen such a reaction from
he looked so gutted.
He did look gutted. Like it was a typical Walcott goal. He took it really well first time.
And although I know we'll get to it later on, but although there were a number of people who started to make their way around the sort of 80th or whatever minute it was, majority did stay and applaud. I was going through too much inner turmoil at the end to really applaud the team off. But generally the support is there, and as we'll get to with the whole rational side of things, it's separating the emotion in the moment to the bigger picture. So and then Walcott scores the second.
And I'm like, well, this wasn't in the script. And that statistic that only 4 times in Premier League history has the team bottom one at the top team's home ground. I'm like, oh, good. Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. But we actually responded. And what was interesting is that Saka and Martinelli were clearly back on form. Saka's had a couple of games where he's been off the boil a little bit by his high standards. He was brilliant. Martinelli was electric. There was one opportunity before his goal where he went on a fantastic run. But again, if he just looked up, he had a square pass that he could have played, but he just ran down a blind alley. Now, he used to do that all the time. He does that less and less now. There is so much more end product to his game. And another player that didn't play particularly well until the last 10, 12 minutes is Ødegaard. But one thing he did do really well was he released Saka with a fantastic pass from midfield, and then Saka set up Martinelli for that volley. That was on 20 minutes. So I'm feeling confident again because we scored. It was going to be one of those games where we'd have 30 attempts on goal and just none of them will go in, but we'd actually score quite early. So that plays on their mind. and actually gives us confidence as well. So I was thinking, right, we'll get the second goal before half time, and we'll just kick on then for the second half. And then when we didn't score the second goal at half time, I was like, well, okay, no, that's good. We didn't score just before half time, because we're going to score at the beginning of the second half, and that momentum will just kick us on for the whole of the half, and we'll just steamroller them. But we all wanted. All I could see was that Vieira off for Trossard. That was the change. But actually, Southampton made the change at half time. Took off their best player, Alcaraz, who'd scored one and assisted, and was terrorising Arsenal's defence. It really was. Every time Southampton went forward, it was like, oh crap, they could score here.
Manager, I've avoided as much material about this as possible. But did the manager say why? Must be an injury, right?
No injury at all. He well, do you know what? It kind of worked, because the Saka and Martinelli had a lot less space because they had three at the back, so they had a centre back nearer to them as well as a wing back covering. So Saka and Martinelli did have a lot less space, and maybe that's why we were quite muted for the first 20 minutes of the second half. I did have the statistic. I don't think we had an attempt on goal in the first 20 minutes of the second half.
No, we didn't.
And we're 2-1 down.
Something like 10 after 75 minutes.
And we're 2-1 down at home to Southampton. So what something, and the only thing that changed at half time was that change. So it might have been quite an inspired move had the game not ended the way it did for them. And the crowd on the telly, the only time the crowd got flat on the telly was in after the 68th minute or 66th minute when they scored the most. Again, I mean, just a catalogue of errors for each of the three goals we conceded. We gave the ball away in midfield for the second Southampton goal, the Walcott goal. It was Ødegaard just passed it blindly into the middle, and that was it. One pass through, and Gabriel was turned. Didn't really know where Walcott was. There was no fullback covering at all, and that was that. But a flick on, it was Steve Bold, Tony Adams all day long. Flick on, back post, free header. Zinchenko again, and Saka or Martinelli, I can't remember, just standing there. They watched.
Why Zinchenko on? Was it Stevens who scored it? I can't remember.
No, it was some. I can't. Carcatella. I don't know. I can't remember his name.
Anyway,
one of the centre backs.
Feels like a mismatch.
Well, yeah, there was no move. There was no. The Southampton player was the only one on the move. Yeah. Arsenal players were like static.
All those stats going around about how we're not really defending our sort of penalty area very well, especially post World Cup, is sort of coming to bear,
and that was before Saliba's injury as well. That's not directly related. That doesn't correlate directly with Saliba's absence. Although there's an argument to say that Partey's game is the most impacted by Saliba's absence, because he's having to drop a lot deeper into Holding's territory, because Holding is not as progressive or confident or incisive on the ball as Saliba is, and that's harming Partey's game. And Partey, well, I mean, if you think about the West Ham goal, where Partey's, maybe a bit deeper than he is, near the edge of his own area, and he's trying to flick the ball over Declan Rice, and it doesn't come off, and it's 2-1 or 2-2. I can't remember. Was that the equaliser? I can't remember. So what was the atmosphere like in the ground then when that third goal went in? 3-1 down, 60. So you got 25 minutes to go.
Yeah, of course. I mean, notably quieter, but still supporting. On the whole, still supporting. People can see the bigger picture. We're still in a good position. No one saw that comeback coming. Not with 3-1.
No, not as the clock ticked into the 88 minutes, and it was still 3-1. And on the camera, because the camera's just looking over to what stand is opposite the the dugouts, the West stand.
Yeah, I think so. No, it's East. Is it
East stand? East stand. Lots of empty seats.
Yeah,
but they weren't empty. Funnily enough, 5 minutes later, which was really interesting. The commentator was doing my head in. I mean, I don't know. he was like, I was thinking, can I just mute him and hear the atmosphere? Obviously you can't, but he was frustrating me. Mind you, quite a lot was frustrating me at that point. Straight after, about a minute after they scored for 3-1, Jesus had an opportunity to score, and leaning back, volleyed it over. He had to score that. It was a really gettable chance for a striker. Like, it really was. I can't remember who crossed it in from. I think it was either Saka or Trossard. I'm not sure. Or Martinelli. I think it was Martinelli, actually. And that would have been back to 3-2. And with 20 minutes to go, the atmosphere would have been really bang on from that point, not from 88 minutes where we had less time. We absolutely battered them after that in that last 10, 12, 15 minutes, including injury time. But it was just all so desperate and chaotic.
Well, that's the thing. The changes we then did make in the second half, just
right. So 57 minutes Trossard for Vieira. Eddie came on 72 for Zinchenko, and Nelson came on for Martinelli on 85.
Well, when Eddie came on, there was after that there was no discernible sort of shape or pattern to our play. And that's how it felt from the where we were looking. You know, it was desperate times, desperate measures, really.
But that was our most effective period from that point on.
Yeah, maybe we need to embrace the chaos a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
well, I remember Wenger used to do that. Wenger would often have that game where Canu scored 3 goals at Stamford Bridge. We had like 6 strikers on the pitch at that point because we were 2-0 down.
Yeah. And we said about, the fact that perhaps Vieira played because it was more of a round peg in a round hole, when actually, a little bit of variety could be what's needed to throw. Have we become a little bit predictable in some respects?
Yeah, possibly. And I haven't seen Vieira give us anything in a like Nelson. I thought when Nelson came on, looked really dangerous. I thought of the 3 substitutions, his was the most impactfgod. But again,
Eddie
maybe
had
because of
very little to go on, didn't he?
Yeah, he got in the way of a Saka shot, which was destined for the back of the net as well. It's like, oh God! I mean, it wasn't his fault. He couldn't it was a crowded box and the ball was hit hard, and he couldn't it had already bounced off him before he realised it had even hit him. So Ødegaard then actually demanded the ball for the first time in the game and really did grab proper captain's performance there. Really did grab the game by the scruff of the neck. 88 minutes. Ødegaard, lovely goal.
Right. It was a lovely goal. It was a great goal. You know where we sit, obviously.
Yeah.
We have the perfect view for that.
Yeah.
He's on the edge of the box. He kills it in. He must have been in that position 4 times and didn't shoot earlier on in the game. And only when the pressure has ramped up and the desperation has increased does he then pull the trigger and shoot. And I just think, well, why? What?
Yep. No, absolutely. Look at the goal he got against Spurs at their ground.
Yeah.
Outside the area, shoot, bottom corner. He's got a fantastic shot on him, very accurate.
And even if the shot itself doesn't go in, the keeper might have to make a save, and then it's ricochet tap-in time for the strikers.
And the crowd's up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going sideways.
Those other 3 occasions when he got in that position, he got it and either checked back and played it down the line, or he played it across the penalty box. And it's that directness that maybe is also a bit missing. And
another brilliant left-footed finish from Saka 2 minutes later. And I'm at this point, everyone in the house is asleep. Well, I think they were. And I'm swearing blue murder when we've scored the 3rd goal. Quite emotional, kind of pulling me hood up over me head and pulling it down in front of my eyes, thinking, I can't believe it. It's that you used the word tantalizing earlier, and it would have surpassed the Nelson goal if we'd got a 4th and won the game. Which
is why I never really believed, because I was just like, it can't happen again.
I mean,
it can't happen again.
It can't, no, and it didn't ultimately. But
then I didn't think 3-3 would happen.
No,
so,
Trossard's shot. Oh, he was so unlucky. If he'd taken that shot a yard further back, it would have dipped in time. And then we had a couple of goalmouth scrambles where, I mean, Jesus wanted too many touches in the box on more than one occasion. You just swing your foot at it.
Well, I feel like that sums up most of the players at the minute.
Yeah, you're so close to goal. It's like
they want too many touches.
Yeah, it's not going to take you a rocket to score here. It's literally just put something on it and it'll just float over the line. Yeah. It was so. You were watching
on TV,
yeah,
and obviously we have just the one perspective live in the ground. Was VAR turned off on Friday night?
No, look, right, okay. So,
I mean, it's one of those things that players go over in the box late on. They're calling for it. I have no idea.
We didn't see any VAR checks, but VAR checks were done according to the commentators, and right. So we didn't see any. And because so much was happening. Yeah. There was no time for a replay or rerun of most of those. From the 90-minute on, it was just mental. I mean, it really was just...
I can't take these games.
And we've had a hell of a lot of them.
When you think of just after the World Cup alone, Aston Villa, Man United, Bournemouth, the end of the Liverpool game, and now this. That's 5. That's 5 heart attacks, that are trying to give us. Oh, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, the other thing I want to say, and you'll obviously be far more aware of this than me, is the time wasting from the Southampton goalkeeper in particular, and the crowd were really. I mean, you could hear it from like the 10th minute onwards.
From the first half.
And I have no issue with them time wasting. They're leading. They're winning the game. They're bottom of the league. They could not have imagined that. It's up to the referee to referee it.
And they added the time on.
And we got the time on, yeah.
7 minutes in the first half. I know there was the injury. Was it Bednarak, I think?
Yeah, Bednarak.
But and then 8 minutes. I think it was 8 minutes, wasn't it?
It was 10 minutes in the end, yeah.
10 minutes in the end, yeah, exactly. So it felt like that time was available. The only time I have a problem with it is, like you say, is if there's no real reason for them to do it, but most importantly, if you don't get that time back. Like, that's what injury time is supposed to be for. It's supposed to fill in those gaps where stops in play happen. Now, we know that we lose way more than, the usual sort of 6, 7, maybe even 8 minutes across both halves, but at least that was something,
That was nice to see, because 8 minutes is a long time.
Now, that said, if you're a ref, like, if it's got to the point where you're having to have a word with the goalkeeper, clearly they've done it more than once, because you're not going to have a word on the first occasion. Just book him. Just book him. It's not hard, is it?
Well, funny enough, when he had a word with him, that was one of the longest goal kicks after he had the word with him.
Well, I'm sure it was.
So it's like...
Because the players know the psychology.
Yeah.
The players know, well, he's had a word with me, so I'll just...
Yeah, he's not going to book me this time.
He's not going to book me this time. He's going to book me next time, and we'll see how it goes. Oh, it is funny, though.
But I had no issue. I thought, I don't blame Southampton for that one bit. I blame Man City coming at 0-0.
We did it at Liverpool. We were trying to kill the game because we could sense their comeback, coming. It is one of those things. It's not in the spirit of the game, but whatever.
Well, yeah. Who's to say it's not in the spirit of the game? It's about win at all costs, isn't it?
Well, yeah. That'd be nice.
Yeah. So final whistle went, and it was like I don't know what to think, what to feel. It was...
Oh, I knew what to feel at the time. It's only since then where I've been presented with certain information where I've gone, actually, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Look. So that's the game. Now we'll move on to the 3 section.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Was it 3 takeaways and then 3 things to you're looking forward to?
And then 3 random things if we've got time.
Right. You can have the 3 random things to yourself. I haven't. Right. I haven't. Maybe my 3 random things could have been incorporated into my 3 things to look forward to. It's like that's that. Right. So what are your 3 takeaways then?
Well, first of all, was the atmosphere. You know, Friday night against relegation team, it was just great. You know, Ashburton Army were doing what they always do, but even down our end in the North Bank, you know, with Red Action flying the Vamos banner. There was also the I can't remember the name. Is it Free Evan?
Oh, the American journalist, yeah,
American journalist who's been imprisoned in Russia. You know,
yeah.
that was all sort of well documented. And so the atmosphere is buzzing, and it does carry on. There is this sense of just we're there to support. It's the first time in a long time that a few sort of naysaying voices have cropped up, but to me, they're still far overwhelmed by the people who are seeing the positives overall and realise that we've got a part to play in supporting the team and cheering them on, and you know, doing what we've got to do.
Nobody could possibly have anticipated where we'd find ourselves.
A friend of mine who, you know, sits a few rows behind us, he said, I feel guilty feeling angry.
Yes.
But I do feel a bit angry because, you know, it was there for the sort of taking. But he does, you know, the point was he feels guilty feeling angry because, wow, look at all this that we've done this year. We were hoping to compete with the likes of United, Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool for top four, and instead we're in a title race with Man City. It's unreal. And top four is confirmed. St Tottenham confirmed.
And the other thing about that is, I've lost my train of thought.
That's right.
What were you talking about? What were we saying?
About feeling guilty, but also.
Oh no, and there's also an excitement about next season, because I do hear a lot of people say that other teams are going to strengthen.
Yep. Well, that was the thing thrown at us last year, wasn't it? Last year it was said this will be Arsenal's last chance for a chance of top four, because everyone else will strengthen. Chelsea are going to buy the world, and look how that turned out. Liverpool will improve and Tottenham will improve because they've got Champions League football. Well, look how all that turned out.
No, absolutely, and so
we can improve.
Yeah, we absolutely can. It's that natural kind of gentle evolution.
Team, hungry team.
But I think, you know, we'll talk. Let me see if I written it down. Yeah, we'll talk. I had. I don't know. Maybe because I was removed from it. I was watching it at home on the telly, but that was the first time I did. And I'm not digging out individual players. Well, I am actually digging out individual players. That was the first time, even though quite a few players had a poor game below their standards. Jesus frustrated me more than anybody else on that pitch.
Really?
And I don't want him out of the club. I don't want us to sell him at all. But I want us to upgrade our striker in the summer.
You want I think a one chance and take it striker.
Well, I want look. I watched the Newcastle Spurs game today, and Alexander Isak, his first, I don't know, one of his two goals. He was put through by an amazing pass from Joe Willock, by the way. It's just a beautiful outside of the right foot pass. And he was running, and he his first touch took him into the box, and the clinical finish to the bottom corner. Jesus wouldn't have scored that. I just wouldn't have had that confidence that he'd have scored it. But the quality of chances he's missed just on Friday night
makes you want.
Yeah, I want him. Can you imagine him on the bench covering those positions alongside Trossard? That makes our first 11 would be stronger, but our squad would be ridiculously strong. In Sagan. So, and that's the gentle upgrade.
While we're talking about it, then, who?
Ivan Toney, I'd have all day long.
Really?
Having watched him because he's different as well. Because he's very good at link up play, hold up play. He pulled. We watched him. Brentford and Man City played at the Emirates in consecutive games, didn't they? Yeah. And he was much more of a threat to us than Haaland was. He just absolutely bossed out, and this was Saliba was playing; it wasn't Holding. And we were both standing there thinking, "Oh, he's really good." I didn't realise
Don't
how
get me
good.
wrong. My reaction wasn't so much a dig at Tony. I think Tony's an excellent player, and I would love him. I thought you would go someone maybe more high profile, but I have no idea who that is.
Well, okay, Liverpool got Mane and Firmino and Salah when they were not high profile.
No, you're right.
So it's again, you talked about fitting boxes.
It's not buying for the buying's sake. It's buying the right player for, alternatives or, something different, like you say.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are plenty others out there, I'm sure, but just on what I've seen, and he's different. He's a presence. All our strikers are quite short and similar, samey.
Penalty taker, good in the air.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But also good at link-up play and pacey, and just a handful. And Premier League proficient.
Ready. Look at Trossard.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference it makes, and look at compare that to Vieira.
Yeah.
And also, like in midfield, get Declan Rice or Caicedo today was fantastic against.
I didn't see all the game. I was working out, but I saw the end of it and read bits online. And
I was paying close attention to him, and the way when he'd get the ball off the central defenders, his ability to turn away from the press and pick a player, and all of a sudden launch a Brighton attack was imperious. I was like, oh, don't do too much of that, because
which is what I'd say Partey does, but he just seems to dwell on the ball a bit too much in the last few games. I don't know why. So it seems a bit more
because of holding. Because I think he's dropping deeper. I think he's conscious that he doesn't have, Saliba's an outball for him under pressure. Maybe he thinks subconsciously that Holding doesn't offer that security.
He's got to trust Holding. Holding actually on Friday night played a couple of great long passes. It's not that Holding is without ability. It's just
I don't think he was that culpable really on the night at all. Holding. So it's but I want Saliba in the starting 11.
Well, of course.
Or Ben White there and Tommy Asu at right back. We've just been unlucky again, like last season, that we've been hit in the same position. Crucially, but and someone like Rice, would be an upgrade on Xhaka, even though Xhaka's been excellent. But I just think Rice would be an upgrade, and it's that kind of, again, you buy Rice, and you're not just strengthening your first 11.
You're strengthening your bench.
You're strengthening your squad, because it means
your ability to rotate.
Yeah, and on the bench you've got so much more strength in depth. So that's so I have no idea. Why was I talking about that?
I have no idea.
It started with Jesus. Yeah, go on. Are you on your second takeaway then?
Second takeaway: comeback, fight, character. As much as it's obvious that we basically had a bit of a nightmare start to the game, you do have to sort of praise the character to sit up again. There was huge frustrations. That's not taken away the huge frustrations on Friday, and even in the West Ham game as well. But they're games we've ended up not losing, and I don't know. It sort of leads on to my next takeaway, which is if Man City were top of the league by is it 5? 4?
Yeah, 5.
4.
5.
5 points. If Man City were top of the league by 5 points and unbeaten in 10 games, you'd say, well, yeah. It's that kind of mindset, isn't it? The reason everyone has this sort of doubt and this nervous feeling in their stomach is because this team haven't been there before, and we as a club haven't been there for 20 years nearly. So that's why the doubt's there. And because Man City have done it over 2 years in a row, that's what they're sort of expected to do. But it's a great position to be in, and it comes from that fight and that character. Their heads don't necessarily drop, their attitude doesn't necessarily
no, we are mentality monsters.
Yeah,
there's no question about that.
Individual errors at the minute are killing us a little bit, and whether that's because of a change in dynamics in the team, whether it's fatigue, whether it's a kind of mental burnout to an extent, over the course of a 90 minutes, at least you can look at certain patches of the game, whether it's the start of the Liverpool game or the start of the West Ham game or the end of the Southampton game, and go, okay, it's not just disappeared, it's not just left us, and I'm reminded of that sequence of games last year where I think it was it Everton, Southampton? No, it was Spurs, Southampton, Brighton, and it just
Newcastle as well. It was Spurs and Newcastle back-to-back games.
Well, there
lost.
were a couple of patches, weren't there? Unfortunately, and that hasn't been the case.
No, we lost those games, whereas we've drawn these games. So there's a difference.
There is a difference, and at the end of the day, I keep seeing this thing online about if Arsenal finish second, it's bottle job, blah blah blah. No, really,
that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous because no one expected us to be here. So the fact that we've got an amazing atmosphere, the fact that we're showing fight and character, the fact that we're 10 unbeaten, is to be celebrated. It hurt on Friday night, but there's so much to be.
And positive. We're ahead of Man City, who are lauded as the greatest football team, ever. Almost,
and the most expensively assembled, apart from maybe now Chelsea and United,
and with over 100 charges hovering against them at some point. So we're up against all of that. Okay, my 3 takeaways: defend like that against City, and we'll get hammered. I just want to go back to the Ramsdale one. I think the Ramsdale one. He's been relegated in consecutive seasons before. He knows all about pressure. So I don't think he's got an issue with pressure. For me, I think he just made a mistake. He got a little bit complacent and he took on a pass. He took on unnecessary risk with that pass and just didn't execute it. It can happen. I don't think there's any issue with his mentality at all. He didn't have a great game. There was a double save, but the first save wasn't fantastic. The second save was good, but the second save only had to be made because he'd scuffed the first save. He'd scooped it into danger. But yeah, so defend like that against City, we're done. On Wednesday night, Arteta needs to get everything spot on.
Well,
there cannot be a mistake or in hindsight, he should have done that. He has to get lucky. That's getting lucky as well. Okay. You're shaking your head. Why?
Well, save it. What's your third takeaway? And then we'll talk about our things to look out for.
My third takeaway is player responsibility. Far too many need to take, like Ramsdale, like Partey, Zinchenko, Jesus. So I wouldn't be mentioning Arteta needed to get everything right if certain players hadn't made certain mistakes, and that's not on Arteta. That's on those individual players. So I'm absolutely not getting on Arteta's back at all. I would say about any manager, Wenger in his prime, that we're the underdogs on Wednesday. We're going to the Etihad. City are 2-1 on. I wrote it down. We're 9-2 to win the game. We are the underdog. So we need to get, and we will be missing Saliba. He's not going to play Saliba, 5 days after he didn't make the Southampton game. So we're going to be up against it. We're going to have the perfect performance. And that means from Arteta as well. And he has not playing Vieira from the start when an entire fan base can see that maybe Trossard. Nobody was telling me once the teams had been announced that Vieira was a preferred option to Trossard. It was kind of, this is before the game, not then maybe confirmation bias during the game, but he didn't do anything in the first half. He didn't cost us a goal, but he just didn't offer us anything. He was anonymous. He wasn't there. I wasn't aware that he was on the pitch. So he went hiding. Interestingly, Arteta said that he didn't see any player hiding after the game. And that was interesting because Vieira was the first player he hooked. So maybe he...
Yeah, but that's an easy change to make, isn't it?
Well, it's the obvious one to have started with.
Exactly.
And his substitutions were just a bit late. Vieira Trossard should have come on at half time, but anyway. Right, so they're my 3. So player responsibility, too many below par, Jesus busy but profligate is what I've written for him, and he was like intensely frustrating me. I had no confidence that he was going to. He had a header as well in the first half, and he's like he made it look hard. He made it look on first playing. I thought, oh, maybe that's quite a difficult chance. Replay, I'm like, what are you doing? You've got no defender near you. You're a centre of goal, and you're heading that over and not even close. So I was like, get it on target, hit it down, all those things. He got to the pitch of the ball. It was just a poor effort. So anyway, right, go on, Em. Your 3 things you're looking forward to.
Well, on the flip side of some of the points you've just made, whatever happens on Wednesday, it's impossible for Arteta. Whatever decision he makes, however he chooses to approach the game, it's impossible because
not if you get a win.
Well, yeah, sure. But if he gets a win, fine. But then
that's what I'm talking about.
But it's also impossible tactically to approach Man City because if you go really defensive, you cede possession and territory to arguably some of the best players in the world. If you try and go toe to toe with them, you can leave yourself exposed. And especially with the changes he can make and the systems that he could alternate with, we know we're not going to be at full strength. So it's not going to be a case of we know what the plan is going to be. So I just feel like it's just the impossible.
Would you play Zinchenko or Tierney?
Well, I don't know, because the problem is, again, we just see who strolls out there. They know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know.
No, would you play Zinchenko or Tierney?
Yeah, but it depends on their fitness.
Well, no, they're both fit. They're both fit.
Well,
who would you play?
I don't know, because I've also heard and discussed the idea of potentially going to a back 3, on Wednesday, where you play Gabriel, Holding, and Ben White. And then you have a wing back, which
Saka and
arguably could be Saka and Tierney, and then you do a double pivot in midfield with Partey and either Jorginho or Zinchenko.
That's a lot of change.
It is a lot of change, but it's a lot of different opposition to sort of counteract. But then I just don't know.
But like you said, we're on a tank. The reason I would have a question mark over Zinchenko is just because of how emotional he is, and this is back and the nature of the game.
Because it's City.
Because it's City, yeah, that's it. I think he'll play if he's.
Well, we all saw the scenes in the cup match, didn't we? There, where there was all that sort of banter and jostling with him at the end of the game from some of his former teammates. I don't know. Arteta's the only one that'll know.
Yes.
If Zinchenko's fit, I think if Zinchenko's fit, he'll play.
Yes. I think he should.
Arteta won't look at the psychology of it at all. And if the psychology of it is a problem, it should reveal itself fairly early on, at which point you say, right, no, get out. You're too much of a liability.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Right, go on, quick. We got
next one.
6 minutes.
The one positive, and a bit of Schadenfreude is that Ake went out in the Bayern game with a hamstring, so you could feasibly see Saka up against Laporte on that side.
Didn't Diaz? Was it Laporte or Diaz went there? Who went there? Was it Laporte?
To be honest, either or. It's a centre back player. I mean, Diaz is much the better defender. But that will be interesting. So you hope that Saka will be able to make things happen, but only really if he's supported by Ben White. But then it's how much license do you give Ben White to get forward, knowing the way they can hit us? This is the thing. It's catch-22. You either go for it and see what happens, or
it's become a game. It's become a game. Well, actually, it's still a game we cannot lose.
Must not lose.
Yeah, must not lose because
I think if we go to play the game saying don't lose, that's the mistake.
Yeah, but see now it's changed. It's more like a game we need to win now because if we draw the game, it's no longer in our hands, and City could win all their remaining fixtures. I don't think they will, but if we were to lose, they need to drop points in 2 games. I think that's and us win everything. I think that's a bit of a stretch.
I'm not sure. Again, we won't have time for this, but actually, we're looking at games against Brighton and Newcastle that are far from foregone conclusions.
And Chelsea.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I think you like a narrative. Mudrik's first goal for Chelsea is going to be
I hope we don't
against
get
us.
a new manager bounce by them getting rid of Frank.
Yeah. Go on.
Final thing to look out for against City is, has Martinelli become the new Lacazette? Does he have to be substituted every game? Like, what's the deal?
I think just because it was Nelson and his position,
I literally don't
minutes.
care.
Yeah.
I do not care. Leave him on the pitch.
Who would you have taken if you were bringing Nelson on? Who would you have taken off on Friday? Who?
Jesus off.
Oh yeah, no, me too.
Jesus. Take Jesus off. Martinelli is so dangerous. His form just lately is brilliant. Leave him on the pitch, especially if you're chasing the game. Look, if we're 3-4, 5-0 up and there's only about a minute left, or whatever, fine. But when we've conceded 2-goal lead at West Ham, when we've gone 3-1 down against Bournemouth, don't take Martinelli off. He commits players. He runs at players. He turns players.
Maybe he was just dead on his feet. I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. Then you worry that is it the case, because that was always the feeling with Lacazette, that it was actually his fitness that meant he always got substituted. That he had about an hour, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think it's like that.
But what is it then? Leave him on. He's our most dangerous player. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
We've got 3 minutes. Have you got another one?
No, that's it. That's my 3.
Right. Okay. Really quickly.
You go.
Really quickly. We can go there and win. That's number 1. Number 2, channel the spirit of '89. I remember very acutely, like it was yesterday, the feelings I felt having lost 2-0 at home to Derby and drawn 2-2 at home to Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And then we went to Anfield and won. Now, it's not even as critical as that was. Liverpool hadn't lost in decades by 2 clear goals at Anfield. So we can do it. And maybe the pressure's on City now. All of a sudden, they're not really the chasers anymore. And I know they're used to it, but they're chasing on 3 fronts. The treble. They've got United in the cup final. They've got Real Madrid in the semi-finals. They've got some tricky away games coming up. Fulham away is first up, and I think they're banana skins. I know if Arsenal were playing away at Fulham, Brentford, and Brighton, I'd be thinking, we could drop points there. So why not City? And City have gone to Forest, and City went above us, and then drew away at Nottingham Forest in their very next game. So who's to say? And you said Ake's got picked up an injury. Maybe they've used the fewest number of players in the Premier League this season. So they've got a lot of minutes in those legs. Yes,
really?
They've got a lot of minutes in those legs. Yeah, They might have the biggest squad or the most expensively assembled squad, but it's actually not the biggest in numbers in terms of how they use it. So anyway, right. So look, that's positive. I'm tutoring. Are you going to the game?
No.
Oh, you didn't get a ticket. I'm tutoring until 8:30 on Wednesday. Online. Last session's online. I don't know.
Might get another. Do the whole pause it.
I might get another session. I might get because one of the guys I'm tutoring is a huge Arsenal fan, so I know he's going to have it on his phone anyway.
Wow.
As he's at home on the he'll have, and I don't blame him either. His mother's already asked. His mother's already asked me if I can do it a half hour early, and I said I can't, unfortunately, because I've got other groups. So, he's a year 11 student, but he won't be able to, if it goes bad or goes well, he won't be able to hide it. He just won't. He'll have to tell me. So anyway, right,
cool.
We can do it. We just must not lose. That's it. That's the bottom line on Wednesday. Just don't lose the game, and we owe them. We owe them. If we played them 3 times this season and lost all 3, well, then we don't deserve to win the league ahead of them. Fair play, that's it. Right, I'm going to end this broadcast now. Yes, indeed. Get in.
Top 4.
Woo. Right. Good night.
See ya.